Live from Washington, D.C., Sekulow Live. Phone lines are open for your questions right now. And now, Chief Counsel for the American Center for Law and Justice, Sekulow.
Hey, everybody, welcome to the broadcast. Well, the president has done it again. He has released 10 Gitmo detainees today. He also released one earlier this week. Let me give you a little background on the detainee that has been released. His name is Mohammed Abdul Rahman al-Shumrat. He date of birth was 1975. He is a Saudi Arabian citizen. He was interviewed after his detention as recently as when they first made the detention analysis, which is 2007 and 2008. Here's what his words are. This is coming from the official government documentation here. Detainee continues to support violent extremism, made multiple threats against U.S. citizens abroad, including Gitmo guard staff. Okay? Detainee stated the U.S. is his enemy. On October 14th, 2007, the detainee stated, when I get out of here, I will go to Iraq and Afghanistan and kill as many Americans as I can. Then I will come here and kill more Americans. Detainee stated, I love Osama bin Laden and Mullah Omar, and if I ever get out of Gitmo, I will go back to fight the Americans and kill as many as I can. Wait a minute, it gets worse. Detainee said that if he's released, he would again participate in jihad against the enemies of Muslims, to include the United States. Detainee is proud of what he's done and what he's willing to do. He's willing to do anything to fight against enemies of Islam. Detainee stated he decided to become more religious because of his dislike of the United States and U.S. citizens. And the President of the United States determines that this individual is not a threat to the United States or to our allies in the region. This is outrageous. 10 more of these today. They are not releasing the names of those Gitmo detainees today. This is an outrage. We get back from the break. We're going to talk more about it. Take your calls. I want your reaction to this. We send them to Oman. We send them to Yemen. You send them to Saudi Arabia. We're not following any of these guys. I mean, we kind of barely track them. They're held in custody. What is it, Than 1 year? They're not in custody, but they're monitored.
It depends on the negotiations, but by and large, those countries have failed to monitor, and that's why they return to the battlefield.
So Jordan, this is in very quickly here. He's just trying to empty out Gitmo. I mean, that's what the president's trying to do.
Yeah, absolutely right. I mean, this is a situation where if he can't do it, an actual closure of Gitmo, he can de facto close Gitmo by having these releases move forward, and so he's trying to clear them out as quickly as he can.
Yep. So, folks, we're going to take direct action. We'll take more of your calls. Logan will let you know how to do that in a moment. But again, sign that petition to stop the closure of Gitmo, and join with us in what will be a fight on the Gitmo situation. ACLJ.org or 877-989-2255.
That's right. You can join us many different ways. You can join us on Facebook, Periscope, or you can log on to ACLJ.org. You can also get the ACLJ app. We even talked about that. ACLJ app on the iOS devices. And the podcast, Sekulow Live, back up to the top 10 of all podcasts.
Really,
thanks
right?
to all of you in iTunes. So if you're in iTunes, you're searching for the Sekulow Live podcast. The easiest way right now, as we speak, go to the top podcast. You'll see we are right there in the top 10, probably number 6 right now of all podcasts worldwide. So it's pretty unbelievable. Thank you guys so much for doing that. And again, that's on iTunes.
We're also getting great comments already coming in from Twitter. We'll hit those during the break, and when we come back on the air, and we'll take your calls at 800-684-3110. Don't forget, we got that petition up about not closing Gitmo for this very reason. ACLJ.org or 1-877-989-2255. ACLJ.org or 1-877-989-2255. Back for more in a moment.
At a time when the U.S. is facing deadly threats from radical jihadists, President Obama is moving forward with plans to close Gitmo, the prison at Guantanamo Bay that houses the very Islamic radicals who want to destroy America. During his State of the Union address, President Obama once again vowed to subvert Congress and, quote, shut down the prison at Guantanamo, releasing dozens of radical Islamic terrorists, many of them returning to the battlefield. We've been aggressively fighting for years to hold terrorists as enemy combatants in the war on terror and stop President Obama's plan to close Gitmo. Now we're vigorously working in Congress to defeat President Obama's plan to release dozens of additional terrorists. Sign on to our new petition, Don't Close Gitmo and Release Terrorists. Call 1-877-989-2255. That's 1-877-989-2255 or add your name online, aclj.org.
We're Americans. We're proud of it. Most of the people listening to this broadcast are believers. We're proud of that, too. We believe that God is sovereign and in control. But I do not understand an administration that lets out a guy named Mohammed Abdul Rahman al-Shimrant who says, my goal is to kill Americans. And he's been released from Guantanamo Bay. And if you think I'm kidding you, folks, I'm showing this on Facebook and Periscope right now. Here's the document from the Department of Defense, Logan, and they can see it, okay?
Yeah, people are asking how did this information come about? Not just he was released, but the specific quotes.
It's a public document now that they released. They will not release the other 10, though. They're not giving us the names of the other 10.
They're not giving us the other 10, but here's the point that we need to make, Jay. This is one of the people who actually was approved for release. There are 59 of these terrorists who are worse than this guy.
Yeah.
This guy wants to return to America and kill Americans, and we still have 59 in Guantanamo Bay who are worse than him. That's who he wants to let out next.
So, Jordan, you ask yourself the political question. I mean, we're just talking about one guy here. Who's probably not the worst. I mean, I suspect there's people much worse than this.
That's why Guantanamo Bay exists, is for these types of people and these individuals who are so committed to this Islamic radicalism and the cause that it doesn't matter if you imprison them for 5, 10 years or longer. They are still a significant threat on the battlefield, and so long as we've got troops in places like Afghanistan, that's why you have a detention facility like Guantanamo Bay. And the release of these individuals in light of what's going on all around the world. I mean, 2 ISIS terror attacks this week in major world cities, Jakarta, Indonesia today, and yesterday in Istanbul. I mean, when you put these attacks together and you realize we're just sending more people back to the battlefield.
It's that are motivated. I mean, it's not just sending people back to the battlefield. These are motivated. We're getting a lot of good comments coming in on Twitter. We're already getting phone calls coming in. Logan, what do we have next?
We have a couple comments. I did want to address one that just came in. They said, where are they, if they're being released out of Guantanamo Bay, where are they being released to?
Oman. They're all going to Oman, at least initially. Now, Oman's not saying they're keeping them. They're saying they will, to help them reacclimate. Now, here's the problem. We know that over a third of these individuals return to the battlefield, but you're basically putting them back. They'll rest up and they're ready to go. Some earlier this week went to Saudi Arabia and Kuwait. That's what Will just told me. So they're going into the region. Denise has
Twitter. Denise on Twitter, she put, it's all part of the lead behind paradigm. Are you surprised?
I am not surprised. It is part of leading from behind, but I think, Than, what has happened here, I want Than and Jordan to comment on this, then we'll take some phone calls. It's dangerous. In other words, the president is I believe that this act of the president of the United States puts American soldiers and American citizens in harm's way again. And we're already in harm's way, but it escalates it for no reason.
Well, clearly it does. All you have to do is look at the words of the terrorist he released. The president has chosen to put his campaign narrative to close Guantanamo Bay ahead of protecting the American people. Plain and simple. That's a tough thing to say, but this is a terrorist who has said he wants to continue or to return to the battlefield and kill Americans, and the president has chosen his campaign promise instead. And Jay, final thing on this. Those 59 that we're talking about that aren't eligible to negotiate with other countries, the only place they can come is the United States, and if they do that, it will be breaking U.S. law.
You know, Jordan, you take a look at that. You take a look at the situation with Iran where they took our soldiers captive. We're going to play some of that video during the breaks here. I mean, really outrageous. I mean, unbelievably outrageous what they put our sailors through. And let me just finish it. When Ronald Reagan had a situation with the Iranians in the 1980s, he engaged in what was called Operation Praying Mantis. One of our ships hit a mine that was in the Persian Gulf area. It caused severe damage. No sailors died, but it caused real serious injury to the ship and to individuals. Operation Praying Mantis from Ronald Reagan remains the largest surface battle engaged in by the U.S. Navy since World War II. It was a decisive outcome. We took down naval gunships. We launched military from the USS Enterprise. The Navy destroyed 2 oil platforms, sank 4 Iranian Navy boats, sank an Iranian frigate, and went after several other Iranian warships. That's what a leader does. What a leader does not do. And do we have the soldier giving the apology? And then I want Jordan to comment. Our naval soldier, our sailor, was compelled to say this.
It was a mistake. That was our fault. And we apologize for our mistake.
In your GPS, right, in GPS track, it is completely that you have penetrated to Iran territorial water?
I believe so.
How was the Iranian behavior with you?
The Iranian behavior was fantastic while we were here. We thank you very much for your hospitality and your assistance.
Didn't have a special problem?
We had no problem, sir.
Jordan, this whole incident, you take Gitmo, you take Iran, you put it together, and the president's policy in the Middle East is a disaster, and we're paying the consequence. Seriously paying the consequence.
Exactly right. Those are hostage-type videos meant to embarrass the United States, embarrass our armed forces. And you realize that this whole feeling in America, we just can't take this anymore, and a president who is either completely checked out based off the State of the Union or living through really looking at the world through these rose-colored glasses that his team provides him, because it is just not realistic what we are seeing and how we are being treated. I include this with how Russia has gotten involved in Syria, how Iran would take these troops hostage this way, force them to record these kind of videos, release images, release the videos. All of this goes to American perceived weakness. And I'm not saying that we don't have the potential to be right back at the strongest nation in the world and to put the fear of God in these other countries, but we're not doing that right now.
No, we're not. What we are going to do is take more of your calls and comments. Let's go ahead and do that, Logan.
Let's go to Jane, who's calling from Springfield, Virginia, on line 4. Also, if you're on Facebook, thanks, Jane. You're on the air.
Hey, Jane, we're going to send you a copy of one of our books. Go ahead.
Okay, my question is, if Obama is successful in being able to close Gitmo on his own, wouldn't it be too late to undo that action?
No. The problem would be, depending on what happens with that lease with the Cubans. And this is all, I think, look, I look at the closing of Gitmo not in isolation. I look at the closing of Gitmo as it relates to exactly what the president's plans are in Cuba, and that is to remove the American president. Can he pull that off in 12 months? Listen, fans, lay out what the legislation is really quickly here, and then I'm going to tell everybody what we're going to do about this.
Well, the law says that they cannot be moved to the United States, but as it pertains to the caller's question, Jay, I mean, there are two things. What will the president do with Guantanamo Bay? I suspect he will give it up entirely, so
yes,
forget
that's what
reopening.
I think.
Right. But secondly, he will have already moved these 59 out, so they will be in the United States, and the next thing that he will try to do is try them in Article 3 courts. I mean, so we're talking about...
Which is civilian civil courts.
Right, a step that you can't take back. You could open another detention facility for new detainees. Yep. It would be very, very hard to walk it back on these 59.
Let me tell you what we're going to do. We've got a petition up right now. We've had 57,000 signatures in 36 hours? In 36 hours. So we want you to join it. It's a very straightforward petition. It's one for national security, obviously. It is to prevent the president from doing this, and that is don't close Gitmo and release more terrorists. Will President Obama ever get it? I don't think so. But what we can do is start building up our team now so that when he does this move, we're prepared to go both in Congress and in the courts if necessary, as we've done on multiple occasions, and win this. But I need your help. We've got 57,000 signatures. We should be able to get this up to 100,000. ACLJ.org or 1-877-989-2255. ACLJ.org or 877-989-2255. Sign that petition now, Logan.
That's right. You can join us right now in many different ways. You can join us on Facebook and Periscope and also online. Let's go back to the phones. Let's go to Paul. He's calling from Fort Worth, Texas, on line 1. Paul, welcome to Sekulow Live.
Hi, Paul.
Hey, guys. I just want to say God bless you for what you do. Pray for you daily.
Thank you.
My question is, what can we do? We're the citizens of this country. We elected him, and I would think at this point, unless somebody just doesn't really have very good common sense, even the people that voted for him and supported him cannot be in agreement with him.
Right.
Just putting us in danger like this.
Well, let me tell you this. I'm going to play for you the General John Kelly, I think the Pentagon press briefing. This is how dangerous this is. It's a very quick bite, and then I'm going to tell you what we're going to do. Take number 13.
We've now learned that the administration has released Mohammed al-Rahman al-Shumrani. You read over in his file that this Guantanamo detainee, 14 October 2007, stated, quote, "When I get out of here, I will go to Iraq and Afghanistan and kill as many Americans as I can."
That's Louis Gohmert, member of Congress. So this is very, very clear. that it's not just us saying it, it's the Department of Defense documents, it's Congressman Gohmert. Very quickly, Than, your reaction to this, then Jordan, then I'm going to ask people to take action.
This is the norm for detainees released, Jay. This is not an exception. We talked about the 1 in 3 number, but 3 of 5 of the Taliban 5 exchanged for Bo Bergdahl already confirmed back on the battlefield. This is what we should expect every time we do this.
And Jordan, the danger of this, of course, is it emboldens the enemy.
Yeah, so I mean that's the truth, is that what it does is it gives a sign that, yeah, it may take years, but you will ultimately, if you've been captured this way, that the U.S. will release you. And I think it could be used as its own recruiting tool, because the idea is that they will be returning back to these organizations as heroes who defied the United States and were ultimately still released. And to trust these other countries like Oman or Yemen or Saudi Arabia to house these individuals for long periods of time, it's just not realistic.
All right, folks, we're taking direct action. You asked us what you could do. Here's what I'd like everybody that's listening to the broadcast today to do. Go to aclj.org. If you're sick of American soldiers having to make apologies for the president, which is basically what this is, if you're sick of us being treated this way, if it bothers you that we're letting these people leave Guantanamo Bay to kill more Americans, and you go to aclj.org and voice your frustration by signing that petition now to stop the closure of Gitmo and stop the release of these detainees. ACLJ.org or 1-877-989-2255. That's 877-989-2255 or ACLJ.org.
At a time when the U.S. is facing deadly threats from radical jihadists, President Obama is moving forward with plans to close Gitmo, the prison at Guantanamo Bay that houses the very Islamic radicals who want to destroy America. During his State of the Union address, President Obama once again vowed to subvert Congress and, quote, shut down the prison at Guantanamo, releasing dozens of radical Islamic terrorists, many of them returning to the battlefield. We've been aggressively fighting for years to hold terrorists as enemy combatants in the war on terror and stop President Obama's plan to close Gitmo. Now we're vigorously working in Congress to defeat President Obama's plan to release dozens of additional terrorists. Sign on to our new petition, Don't Close Gitmo and Release Terrorists. Call 1-877-989-2255. That's 1-877-989-2255 or add your name online, aclj.org.
So we've got Gitmo detainees being released. One of them that we just know about, because the others, the administration doesn't want to give us the names of, by the way. So one of them we know about. He says, don't worry, when I get out of here, I will go to Afghanistan and Iraq and kill as many Americans as I can, and then I'm going to come back here and kill more Americans. And we think he's suitable to go to Oman. Now, we have the growing controversy over Iran's capture of our sailors. They've been let go, but this has created an entire issue. Skip Ash is a senior counsel for the ACLJ and in charge of our international practice when it comes to law of war. Skip, I asked you this question during the break. I want people to understand it now. The Iranians went in, took over these boats, took our soldiers captive. What is the legal consequences of the Iranian actions?
Well, if it was a mistake on the part of the United States, the crews, and they inadvertently went into Iranian waters, they should have been warned away. The Iranians could have come out and escorted them out of their waters, but there was no hostile act if it's a mistake. If it was a result of a problem with one of the American vessels and it drifted in, under the peacetime rules of maritime rules, they should have gone out and rendered assistance. Unless they have proof that the United States was engaged in a hostile act, and merely going into another nation's waters is not a hostile act, they should have escorted them out, and that should have been the end of it. To disarm them.
So assuming for a moment there was no hostile act, which we know there wasn't, we know that they drifted there accidentally, if they got in there at all. They went onto our boats. What was the consequences of the Iranians? What's the legal consequence of the Iranian regime capturing our Navy soldiers, our sailors?
Well, that's a hostile act between two nations that are not at war, and therefore it's a hostile act. To disarm our people, to take them, put them in detention, to occupy those ships is an act of war. And once you have admitted that an armed conflict is on the way, is underway, then you have obligations on how you treat those sailors.
Sure.
And that was violated too.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk about that in a minute. Here's what Secretary John Kerry said, number 41.
I want to underscore how pleased I am that our sailors were safely returned into United States hands this morning. I also want to thank the Iranian authorities for their cooperation and quick response.
This is disgusting. Okay? This is we are perceived to be so weak. Jordan, it is disgusting.
Yep, I mean we're thanking Iran after they've have made propaganda videos of our soldiers and had our soldiers apologize on camera. They show them huddling away in this room and seizing their weapons. This is again what we're being thankful for to the world, and this is what the rest of our allies are talking about when they say it looks like that we will just let Iran get away with anything, and we're bowing down to Iran and we're fighting with our allies.
All right, let's do this. We got a lot of people that have been holding. Let's go right back to the phones. We're taking comments, too, on Facebook and Twitter. Let's go ahead, Logan.
All right, let's go to the phones. Let's go to Mary Ellen, who's calling from Chicago on line 3. Mary Ellen, welcome to JSECU Live.
Hi, Mary Ellen.
Yes. I have a question about these detainees.
Yep.
And I don't know the rules of international war or whatever they are.
Okay.
But
we'll help you on
why
that.
are they've declared war on us.
Right.
They want to come back and kill us.
Right.
Why can't they be tried and executed?
Well, the trials in Guantanamo Bay, Skip, have gone slowly.
Correct.
Because we're not obligated to try them.
That's correct. We have no obligation during the time of hostilities to try anyone for anything. So we can hold them until the hostilities are over. If we believe they have committed a crime, a war crime, then we do have the option of trying them. But if we do that, then they have the rights that are granted to them under the Uniform Code of Military Justice, and they would have a trial, and some of those are ongoing now.
And then the appetite for this in Capitol Hill. I want people to understand what we've got here. We've got Iran taking over soldiers, humiliating our soldiers, by the way, our sailors. So that we're going to discuss that in the next segment of the broadcast with Skip. But then you also have the release of the Gitmo detainees. You're running our government affairs office. You're in our media center today, but you've been in Washington. What is the reaction going to be? I know we've got to prepare for court here.
Well, the language that they passed prohibiting transfer, Jay, passed so overwhelmingly that the president was forced to sign it. So, I mean, that shows you just how strongly they want to keep from transferring these detainees out. But, so much of this, what Skip was talking about, comes back to the fundamental question, and it's, are we at war? And if we are at war, you actually don't want to try these detainees. You want to keep them so that you can possibly gather intelligence. You certainly don't want to put combatants back on the battlefield.
Right.
The president wants to change that question. He wants to act like we're not at war. That's why he wants to close it down in the first place. Congress isn't with him on it, including much of his party.
All right, so what we're going to do is take action here. Go to aclj.org or 1-877-989-2255 and sign that petition to stand with us on this closing of Gitmo. aclj.org or 877-989-2255. I know we got a lot of calls and comments coming in, Logan.
Let's take one more call before we get to break. Let's go to Zach, who's calling from Los Angeles, California. Zach, welcome to JSECU Live. You're on the air.
Hey, Jay.
Hey.
I just want to tell you, my wife and I really appreciate the export, your work there. That you did.
Oh, thanks, Zach.
Yeah. My question was, how can the left justify the release of the Gitmo prisoners?
Oh, they do it by saying this, that Gitmo is a recruiting tool for ISIS. They use Gitmo as a recruiting tool. But does anybody that's listening to this broadcast, there's millions of you listening to this right now or watching on Facebook or Periscope or on our website, do any of you really believe that Gitmo, Jordan, is a recruiting tool for ISIS, that they need Gitmo to get their recruits?
No, I mean, that's not even the same kind of battle that we're facing when we're dealing with ISIS. The rise of ISIS that we saw, it was really unrelated to this. And so the focus has been in Syria and, of course, Iraq, and a little bit different than the traditional al-Qaeda operatives, though there's certainly some history there. They don't need Gitmo to recruit. That's not what they're focusing in on their recruitment. They're focusing in on their recruitment on tapping into a radicalism within Islam, and they're focusing that throughout the world as we see attacks in Indonesia, Turkey, and right here at home in the United States, as well as Western Europe.
Give me a quick reaction. I got something I want to ask Logan. Go ahead.
They don't even need recruits if we're going to give them their detainees back. These are people who have committed the crimes.
They don't become their leaders.
They don't need to recruit new people if we're going to give them back the ones they have already fought.
And these become their leaders. I mean, so you come out. You're a badge of honor because you were in Gitmo. So what I want to do is keep them in Gitmo. Or it's Skip said try them, but I think keep them in Gitmo. We're in hostilities with this group. Logan, what's the reaction on Facebook and Periscope right now? I'm seeing some, I'm not seeing all. I mean, people are a bit shocked.
Yeah, I think that's mainly it. People are shocked. People are confused of why this would even happen, why we let someone out who has this on their track record. It's public information that he said these type of things. It's different if you can at least show that there may be one peaceful person in there, which would be a shock to say the least. But the fact you release someone who says horrific things against the country, against people, against soldiers, and against the just citizens. So people are just in general Shocked.
Logan, 2 more calls. Can we do 2 in 2 minutes?
I think so. Let's go to Jane first from Phoenix. You're on the air.
Hey, Jane.
Hi, Jay. First of all, I just wanted to say thank you to you and ACLJ for all your hard work.
Yep.
But my question is, I was wondering, does it matter if these detainees that have been captured or may have been captured during an ambush that a past president may have authorized, could there be a written past policy that could prohibit what Obama is currently doing?
No, we have to. We've got federal law in place. There's legislation in place that allows us, if necessary, and I think it's going to be, to challenge it. But look, the president, they got a lot of authorities, Commander in Chief, but this one there's specific congressional action. I think then we need to be very clear on what's in place now.
Just very quickly, it is illegal to remove them to the United States, and also he has to learn from the mistakes of the past president. Some of these were released under the past administration. Right. We have that data to look at now. We have to plead with him to actually use it.
Yeah, that's the problem. All right, Lynn.
Thank you, Lynn. Durham, North Carolina. You're on the air.
Hi, Jay. I listen every day.
Thanks.
Thanks for keeping us updated. Sure. Regarding the Navy incident.
Yep.
I read in the past hour a post on Facebook that said that John Kerry actually called Iran and asked for their help. Is that true?
Asked for their quick release. Here's what John Kerry actually said. Well, let me read it for you. It says, I want to underscore how pleased I am that our sailors were safely returned into U.S. hands this morning. I also want to thank the Iranian authorities for their cooperation and quick response. Those are the words of John Kerry. So you don't have to put words in his mouth. Do we have that bite? Do we have the bite?
Yeah,
Let's play it.
I had heard and read that.
Yeah, well, let me play it for everybody else that's listening right now.
I want to underscore how pleased I am that our sailors were safely returned into United States hands this morning. I also want to thank the Iranian authorities for their cooperation and quick response.
So we're acting, Lynn, like this was some great thing. We got them out. But as Stan and I have been saying, as Jordan said and as Skip Ash said, they should have never been captured, which is what they were in the first place. That's where the problem is. That's going to do it for the broadcast today, folks. ACLJ.org, 1-877-989-2255 to sign that petition. ACLJ.org or 877-989-2255. And again, support the work of the ACLJ. If it bothers you that we're letting these people leave Guantanamo Bay to kill more Americans, and you go to ACLJ.org, and voice your frustration by signing that petition now to stop the closure of Gitmo and stop the release of these detainees. ACLJ.org or 1-877-989-2255. That's 877-989-2255 or ACLJ.org.
At a time when the U.S. is facing deadly threats from radical jihadists, President Obama is moving forward with plans to close Gitmo, the prison at Guantanamo Bay that houses the very Islamic radicals who want to destroy America. During his State of the Union address, President Obama once again vowed to subvert Congress and, quote, shut down the prison at Guantanamo, releasing dozens of radical Islamic terrorists, many of them returning to the battlefield. We've been aggressively fighting for years to hold terrorists as enemy combatants in the war on terror and stop President Obama's plan to close Gitmo. Now we're vigorously working in Congress to defeat President Obama's plan to release dozens of additional terrorists. Sign on to our new petition, Don't Close Gitmo and Release Terrorists. Call 1-877-989-2255. That's 1-877-989-2255 or add your name online, aclj.org.